Welcome back to In the Know. I'm your host, Dan Reith, and we continue our series on meeting the candidate for our upcoming provincial election on June 2nd. In this episode, we're visiting with Rob Flack, the Progressive Conservative candidate for Elgin-Middlesex-London. Rob, welcome to In the Know.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate being here.
So let's start talking about you first. I know for most candidates, that's the least favorite topic. You tried to run federally last year, London West. What made you decide now to run again provincially this time in Elgin-Middlesex-London?
Well, I've been a partisan conservative my entire life, and last year I was asked to run in London West. It wasn't my home seat, but they wanted a strong candidate, and I guess I fit the bill, so we gave it the good old college try. Unfortunately, we came up short in that election. It was a unique election, very, very unique in that it was COVID based. It became very leader centric, and we moved the dial very well. We had a great campaign and very proud of the team, and many of which have joined me in Elgin-Middlesex-London. And but it wasn't meant to be. And London West, remember, was is still very much a swing riding. So it goes as the government goes. So while we moved the needle a lot, we didn't get over the finish line, and now EML, to be blunt, I didn't expect this. I thought maybe some other day I'd find an opportunity to run, but I didn't expect Jeff to retire. And so as they say, one door closes and another opens, and many encouraged me to run and seek it. It's my home riding, obviously. I live in the riding in Dorchester, and got my start really in provincial politics. And so as they say, when opportunity knocks, we took advantage of it and sought the nomination, and here we sit, candidate for Elgin-Middlesex-London.
So what prompts you to give up a successful career in business to jump to the public sector?
This is something I've wanted to serve publicly my entire life, and to be blunt, I was told many years ago to wait until your career has been successfully embedded, that your family's in good form, that your children are raised, and that you can afford to do it. And so that way you're very independent when you come and sit down and play a public service role, that you're really not beholden to anybody other than what you really believe. Yeah, there's partisan politics, you've got to work with the party, but I am committed to public service, always have been. And, I also believe in giving back. My family taught, that's a value that we were taught as kids, and Denise and I, my wife and I, believe in that greatly and have done a lot of public service giving. Not everyone needs to serve in public office or be elected to do that, but I've always believed in this, wanted to do it, and as I said, the opportunity knocks, so we're going to give it our best shot.
The riding Elgin-Middlesex-London certainly has a history of bouncing back and forth between liberal and conservative, and currently it's obviously been conservative the last number of years. Some would argue this is your election to lose. What would you say to that?
I am going to work hard every day, which we've been doing. It's not mine to win or lose. It's mine or whoever can get the most votes, and that's my primary goal. I don't think it's anyone's to lose or win. Obviously in any election, and I think, Dan, you'd agree with this, that it's an election where people look not only to the local candidates, but to the leader and to the party brand and the messaging and the platform. And, I believe that my leadership experience and hopefully a little bit of common sense are attributes that the people of Elgin-Middlesex-London will hopefully elect on June the 2nd.
Let's talk about party platform. In keeping with tradition, I see the platform is brief. What's on the website? The key point, the first key point is the Progressive Conservative Party will rebuild Ontario's economy and bring good manufacturing jobs back. Have we lost that many manufacturing jobs? I thought we pretty much achieved that already the last 4 years.
Well, we lost 300,000 good jobs under 14 years of Liberal government. And then since the Ford government was elected back in 2018, we've brought nearly, or I think close to 300,000 jobs back. We still think that there's a lot more to do. And the bigger opportunity there, or as big an opportunity there, is to find the skilled trades and workers to fill those jobs. And I think that coincides to rebuilding the economy. And I think that, that first plank of 5 really pillars in our whole campaign is the key one to me, because without a strong economy, without creating jobs and without having a skilled labor force to fill those jobs, it's going to be a tough row ahead. Inflation is the #1 concern as I see it. That's going to affect every government from municipal right through the federal level until we get that under control. And we have to bring in good paying jobs. You've got a lot of gig workers. You've got we talk a lot about minimum wage, and that's important, as you know. At the same time, though, we need better paying jobs with benefits, and that's going to happen with a strong economy.
Now, we talk about the skill, there's a real skilled trades gap in the province, or has been for close to a decade. We're really seeing it hit today because we have so many of those traditionally skilled workers are now heading into retirement or have chosen to retire. What's the progressive conservatives' view to solving that problem of a lack of skilled trades in Ontario?
Well, let's start off by talking about what we've done lately. I think, Minister McNaughton has done a really good job, in my humble opinion, of providing programs to skill up or to educate up our workers. For instance, he's also closed the gap in terms of waiting time of skilled labor want to come from other provinces. The waiting time has been shortened. He's done a really good job. I'm going to tell you a little anecdote. I'm one of these people that went to grade 13, and there's probably viewers that haven't gone to grade 13 or didn't have the opportunity to. But I remember I had a math teacher in grade 13 called Rupert Ronald, Mr. Ronald. He was a farmer, so I kind of liked him, and being an ag boy myself. And he said in the class, I remember sitting there, and he said, "Okay, boys and girls, you're allowed to say that then." He said, "Some of you are going to go to university and get a job. You're going to become teachers. You're going to get degrees. You're going to get degrees. You're going to get further education. You're going to become lawyers, doctors, all the above. But a bunch of you shouldn't even bother going to university." And I remember sitting there, as a son of an educator, like, what's he talking about? And he said, you should go into skilled trades, become plumbers, electricians, become carpenters, because you'll make more money. You'll have more fun. You'll get to run your own business. You won't pay for your education. I don't know why that's not talked about more. So if you go back in time, you hear it, you come forward, nothing is more true today than that. And look, I'm an employer, and in our business alone, try and find a millwright, try and find a plumber or an electrician. I'll give you the best one is go try and find a truck driver. We deliver hundreds and hundreds of thousands of feed throughout this country, and in Stratford and Wingham and Kamoka, local plants that buy good feed ingredients from all throughout Elgin and Middlesex counties. We have a hard time finding truckers. The jobs are there. We just have to skill up and get people to fill these jobs. In places like Ridgetown College and Fanshawe College, who I met with this week, can do a lot to help, but we got to find the people to fill those jobs and to fill the need. And there's going to be a lot more jobs come our way. Good jobs.
One of the criticisms I've heard about the skilled trades, particularly with respect to the electricians, is the plan that Minister McNaughton brought into play focuses more so on unionized trades opposed to small enterprise entrepreneurs and non-unionized trades. How would you respond to that?
Well, I would not agree, obviously, because I think that if you want to be an entrepreneur, think about the opportunity to work. I talked to an electrician the other day in St. Thomas, as a matter of fact, and he's willing and able to train people, and he wants people to take over his business, but he can't find them. And so think of a better opportunity than to go and work for a gentleman, work hard, learn a trade, get skilled up, get accredited, and take over a business in 5 years. I mean, when I grew up, those opportunities were there, I'm sure, but in today's day and age, I just hope and wish we could nurture more of the entrepreneurial spirit for young people to get out and get the job done.
Second plank in the platform is we will build highways and key infrastructure. Now, when we have such a push today to reduce the dependency on the automobile and public transit and whatnot, does building highways really align with that mindset, or is that out of step with sort of the modern progressive thinking?
Well, it may not be as important to us in Elgin-Middlesex-London in some respects, but I can tell you, having driven through London last night to get to an event, I would say it's becoming more of an issue. And, I have to, on occasion, more than often than I'd like, have to drive through the city of Toronto. And I can tell you, in that particular part of the world, 905-416, it is a massive issue. Public transit, highways, infrastructure. And as you know, we have to keep our voice loud and clear in Elgin-Middlesex-London, but a lot of the population of this province lives in the Greater Toronto area, or as I like to say, the GTA. In our riding, it's really the Greater Thorndale area, but in the GTA in Toronto, it's a huge issue. So, there's regional aspects to it, but infrastructure still is really important. And our 401 driving down west needs continued improvement, and there's dollars going to be there. And I want to come back to infrastructure, and it's something that I've tried to identify so far in the campaign. And this is maybe the business Rob coming out. There's a difference between spending and investing. And so when you take a look at the infrastructure that we want to invest, let's take hospitals for example, $40 billion over 10 years. I've got at the doors, we've knocked on a lot. They've said 40 billion. Wow, where's that coming from? I said a strong economy, but it's not spending, it's infrastructure. It's investing in the future. And that is, I think, what this last budget that Minister Bethlen Falvey put forward really is identifying, investing in the future.
When we look at the fourth plank, it talks about keeping costs down, cutting the gas tax, scrapping license plate stickers. Lots of backlash on that one. And I'm curious, the government said or some measures have said it's costing the government $1 billion of revenue by not charging for plate sticker fees. Was it really that much? Did the government actually make money off of those sticker fees? It was more of a dollar for dollar.
So Dan, that's the best question anyone's asked, because most people say, why would you get rid of that revenue source? And I was on a call last week with Premier Ford, and it came up on the call with a number of the caucus members and said, we're getting a little bit of negativity. And he said, okay, well, that's fine for all you guys and gals. You can afford to pay the license sticker fees, but there's lots of people that have been adversely affected throughout COVID. They've been hurt in a major way. And he said, let's face it, let's give them the money back, less government, less administration. But the key to your question was, it really didn't develop a lot or generate a lot of revenue for the province because it costs so much to administer. So that therein lies the basis of that particular platform or that policy that they put in place, and people already receive checks. I would also point out, though, in keeping costs down, it's keeping costs down for Ontarians, whether it's lowering the price they're going to pay at the pump of 5.7 cents to offset the carbon tax that came in on April 1st, which was, in my opinion, was just not fair to people. And so we're going to help ease that by reducing the provincial sales tax at fuel at the pump. So that's going to happen July 1st. Employers are going to get back $1.2 billion from WSIB. Again, I think a major plank in terms of reducing costs of government, that there shouldn't have been that surplus sitting there. It's meant to support workers, absolutely. But at the same time, it shouldn't overburden small businesses that have been hurt dramatically during COVID. And I would also say we're important in keeping costs down is keeping the size and cost and scope of government down. It's the people's money, not the government's money, and it's better in the people's pocket than it is in the government's pocket. And as I've always learned, and my father taught me, the easiest thing to spend in someone's life is somebody else's money. So I think the less intrusion folks have into their life from government, the better.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break. My producer's giving me the high sign. So we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're visiting with Rob Flack. Welcome back to In the Know. I'm your host, Dan Breath. We continue with our series on Meet the Candidate. In this episode, we're visiting with Rob Flack, the Progressive Conservative candidate for Elgin-Middlesex-London. A big component of this campaign we're hearing about is affordability, and not just in terms of costs of food, but certainly housing is a major issue for many folks. And we're seeing the Liberals have announced they're going to apply rent controls. We're hearing other parties are going to build all sorts of houses. Yet we have a fundamental problem of a lack of skilled trades, limitations of supplies. How are we going to deal with the affordability crisis when we have certain inputs that just don't exist that are necessary to make the end product happen?
Skilled trades absolutely is one of them. And talking to builders, again, I come back to my example earlier, it's hard to find. So we have to get folks to fill those roles and effectively fill those roles. Look, housing, we just don't have enough houses being built. I think I'm right when I say this, Dan. In the next 4 to 5 years, there's going to be 1 million more people living in the Great Lakes region. And we in EML will have our fair share of that population. So where are they going to work? Where are they going to live? Where are they going to go to a hospital? What roads are they going to travel on? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, we have to seriously look at building more houses. And it's a market-driven sector. And we're just simply not getting enough homes built fast enough. We're going to have to speed it up, full stop.
When the government came in 4 years ago, cutting red tape was a very key component of that platform then. Is there much red tape left to cut to speed up the process? Or is there something more that the Conservative government plans to do to get these homes built?
Well, take a look at London. I think compared to St. Thomas, Thames Centre, or I was even out in Dutton there last weekend and talking to some folks in the development. It takes a lot longer to get builders and shovels in the ground and houses built in London. Why? We can talk another whole segment on that, but that needs to be sped up. And I think, Steve Clark, the Minister of Housing, has done a really good job, but more needs to be done. And we have to, density is a word that people don't like to, talk about all the time. NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Well, we have to densify and go up. And I'm going to tie onto that a little bit and put my farmer Rob hat on in ag. We live in the Garden of Eden in southwestern Ontario. We have the most fertile land, maybe in Canada, but in terms of the ability to produce food. And I'm also not in favor of paving over, cementing over, housing over, always within reason, but there's a lot of densification that can take place first before we start eroding more farmland for housing. And if we expect farmers to remain competitive, to increase yield, to produce food effectively, environmentally properly, we can't burden them by taking their land. And so to me, we got to speed up getting shovels in the ground. That's working with municipalities, and we have to get homes built faster. And we also have to look at the densification and the type of houses we build so people can afford them. And on the affordability side, already you've seen interest rates start to go up. You're already seeing, well, you're in the real estate business, am I not right? Was the first month with interest rates going up, I saw a little dip in sales, at least in the GTA, not Thorndale, I'm talking about Toronto, but we've lived in a low or zero interest rate environment for a long time. I'm a businessman, it's been good, but at the same time, it's caused inflation now, and we're printing money crazily at the federal government, who controls monetary policy. It's print. That money gets into the economy, and it's causing havoc, and it's causing the unaffordable nature of housing, and more importantly, are coupled with that, not getting enough homes built.
Move on to healthcare. I note that the Progressive Conservative platform has shied away from a specific number of healthcare workers that will be hired. And you just left it at more doctors, more nurses, more personal support workers. Where are we going to get them from? Because our universities haven't increased the number of graduates in nursing and medicine in over 20 years. In order to even come close to what is thought to be the necessary number, we would have to have multiple classes turned out simultaneously. Where are we going to find these doctors and nurses from to meet the demand that the province has?
Well, let me begin by saying I think we have identified specifics, and as part of our plan to support hospitals. It's $40 billion for hospitals, also money towards long-term care and home care, which to me is as important a piece as possible, and to get personal support workers hired and in place. But the number that we've identified, Dan, is 27,000 more personal support workers, nurses, and doctors. So yeah, great question. Easier said than done. It's a goal. I think we've got to start off by, when people come to this country with skills, if you can be a nurse, that you're not driving a cab. Not that that isn't important and meaningful work, but let's find a way to speed up proving accreditation from other countries. And I think that we're going to have to make it more attractive for people to feel that they can make a good wage in the nursing profession. I think I'm right when I say this. I met with the VON last week, and a registered nurse in the VON versus being a registered nurse in the hospital can be as much as $11 an hour difference. So we're going to have to bring some pay equity there and attract people back into those professions. And as for doctors, if we're not graduating enough, then we have to look to foreign accreditation and foreign folks to come into this country and fill the need. Again, 1 million more people in the Great Lakes region are going to descend upon us, and we have to be ready. And today we need to make sure we are, by making these investments that Doug Ford and the PCs are talking about.
Let's talk a little bit about Doug Ford for a moment. There are those who will say that 4 years ago, he had the credentials to be a strong conservative leader. And there are those voices today will say he's moved too far to the left to have that credibility. And we've seen two parties rise on the right whose platforms very clearly suggest that Doug is no longer conservative. He has moved to the left. What would you say to that?
Well, I would respectfully and aggressively disagree. Two things. Number one, he became a new premier in 2018. So there's always a bit of a learning curve, and respectfully submitted. But nobody had a playbook for COVID, Dan. Nobody. No prime minister, none of the premiers had a playbook. And so this hit us like a brick wall. Were we prepared? No. Did we get everything right? Probably not. Has it been hard? Absolutely. But again, I'm going to make the difference. And I know some of those who believe that there should be no government, that it's all government's bad. Well, I don't think all government is bad. It just needs to be kept in check and be accountable. And I'm going to again emphasize the difference between investing and spending. I think you'd find our opposition are big spenders. We are going to be investors, investing in infrastructure, hospitals, roads, highways. We're going to invest in people. In the next short period of time, in the budget just submitted 2 weeks ago, you're going to find that we're putting a lot of money towards hiring and getting better personal support workers, over $1 billion. So is that spending, or is that investing in the needs that the market presents itself? Market like a businessman, but I mean the province and the people and what they need. So I think he's a balanced conservative. He's a strong conservative. He comes from strong conservative credentials. He's run a business. I don't buy that argument. And those that have splintered away, that's been as common in political parties since Confederation took place. So I'll leave it at that. Doug Ford is a progressive conservative and a strong premier.
An Ipsos poll was released last week that's asked the question of the three leaders, who would you like to sit down and have a beer with? And 30% chose Doug Ford. The other two were below that, but 46% said none of the above. What do you think of that?
Number one, you wouldn't have a beer with Doug because I don't think he consumes alcohol, but you'd have a Diet Coke with him or whatever his beverage of choice is. But it speaks to the fact. Now we've locked on thousands of doors, and and I did it last summer in the federal election, and I'm doing it this time. And I tell you, if you really want to learn about people think and what they believe in and what their attitude is and what their ideas are in terms of the future, not everyone, but most people, go knock on people's doors. They'll tell you. And if you listen and you learn, you'll find out that there's still an enormous amount of apathy at the doors. People have given up on politics. What's one of the biggest questions I get asked at the door? Why in the heck would you even be doing this? You know, and that's sad. It saddens me because I believe public service is a major and integral part of our society and our democracy. And I respect anyone who puts their name forward, whether it's the Liberal candidate, NDP, New Blue, Ontario, whoever it is. You know, I respect their opinion. I may disagree with them politically, or as Bill Davis used to say, they're politically misguided. But you know, I'd sit down with any of the leaders and have a beer with them. And that's how you listen and learn.
We're down to our last minute, so I want to give it to you to tell our viewers, why is Rob Flack the right choice on June 2nd?
Well, I think Rob Flack and Doug Ford are the right choice. It's obviously you're also voting for a brand, but I've lived in our riding for close to 30 years. I've been an employer. I do a lot of business in the riding, whether it's mostly, obviously, I run a company called Master Feeds. The company's been around for 90 plus years. I've been the CEO for over 25. We've grown it tremendously and had a lot of fun doing it. We do a lot of business with the farmers and agribusiness in our riding. Again, leadership, experience, common sense. I think I bring those elements to public service. And I believe Doug Ford's going to get reelected. And when he does, I want to make sure, like with Jeff Urich, Rob Flack has a strong voice in caucus representing the best interests of Elgin-Middlesex-London.
Well, we are unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much, Rob, for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. If you have any more questions and want to learn more about Rob or the PC platform, you can go to ontariopc.ca. And that's all we have for now. So thanks very much. Thank you for watching. And you are now in the know. Take care.